I love your process, by the way. I don't know if many other bean to bar makers are that intricate, but I've heard some very eccentric ones as well, from overseas. But now that we're talking about the chocolate and we're talking about the differences between the South American or the Latin American beans and from the Pacific beans, such as the Solomon Islands, which you already work with. And what are the other Pacific Island beans that you have made? You may not be, selling bars yet for them, but which are the other ones that you've kind of experimented with that are from the Pacific? And can you tell me more about, is there a flavor profile for Pacific cacao beans?
I'm only really familiar with the Solomon Island cacao that I've been using. I've done trials with Samoan prior to your samples, and from memory they were similar enough to yours to be able to say no great difference. I have had samples from Vietnam, but I haven't had time to explore that properly. I'm very interested in getting more samples from the South Pacific. I haven't done as much as I'd like to. And so very, very, very excited to be part of the Pacific Island Cacao Festival because of the connections I stand to make from it. I think being a South Pacific nation and being conscious of our world environment, and if we can source locally and support locally, that is such a huge positive behind any business. So as much as I love the Solomon beans and the Dominican beans, they're not going to quite hold a place in my heart to a South Pacific bean, because that's ours. That's our own backyard. That's as close as we can get. And that will be the sort of thing that in the future I hope to be able to promote into, around the world, potentially into Europe or whatever. The flavor character itself, I mean, they are different. To describe them,
I'm going to open up the Solomon Island bar.
I don't have an... Yeah, go. Wonderful.
And we can talk about it a bit more. So you can tell me more, because obviously it'll jog my memory. But I'll just say to you, the first time I tasted the Solomon bar, it took me back to, and I'm not kidding, it took me back to sitting in Amazing Grace's farm in Guadalcanal, just outside Honiara, and they were making the traditional food, and they have this cassava cake which has bananas in it, and we started actually adding, because we were doing promoting value adding, using cocoa in their food, and all sorts of wonderful things we did over there for Soul Choc Festival and so on. And we would sit and we would have that cassava cake, different versions of it every day, but it was just the smokiness, and also there was just some flavor in there, the sweetness, the fruitiness that came out with the smoke, and then kind of the smooth honey in the back. When I tasted your bar for the first time for Solomon Islands, it really took me back there to that place, and I had to close my eyes and go, wow, I actually said to myself, oh my God, I miss Solomon Islands, because you've captured Solomon Islands in this bar for me. So I'm going to have some right now.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Simone gave me a little pile of chocolate. I've got them sitting here, but I don't have a Solomon on me to try. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember. I think I can remember the profile of Solomon most distinctly because it's my favorite. It has a lightness of character. It has. I describe them as the light fruit acids. So it's the citrusy and the berries. So you're not getting you're not getting so much of the plummy, like you might describe a Peru as a plummy note, but you're getting. I've said raspberry and lemon meringue. And someone said, lemon meringue? Are you kidding? But it's definitely, that sweetness.
Yeah, definitely raspberries. Yeah.
But I like the high acids, very fruity, not the harsh acids, and that's part of what you're trying to achieve with the process, of course, is to process in such a way so that you're minimizing the harsh acids, the astringency, but leaving those really interesting, beautiful, fresh, fragrant flavor notes that are there. So it's quite possible to overdo things, whether it's over roasting or what, and you end up with a more standard chocolate. Or maybe more consistent and not as many peaks. Imagine the flavor is like a chart. You don't get as many peaks and troughs. It's more general. It's quite easy to do that. But I think with a little care, you can try and find that right balance.
And I think you've done it. I think you've actually found that perfect balance where it is just singing the different flavors and notes as you go through the bar. And I know that a lot of people, when they taste chocolate, they'll just bite into it and chew it and swallow it. But, being obviously a cacao farmer, it's the same thing that we do with the beans as well. And like what you said about the roasting, it's so important, like when you roast the beans, that you can completely kill all of this poetry that you're feeling on your tongue and the journey that it takes, for that bar to last, to last in your mouth. It actually helps you to slow down eating. I don't know about anyone else, but it helps me to slow down. I would take maybe 2 weeks to eat one of your bars. And it's probably no good for you because I probably wouldn't buy a bar for another 2 weeks. But the whole journey is there. And it's so beautiful because I'm not sure if you know very much or if you could remember from your trips to the South Pacific, the banana, which is it's like a plantain. And when you say berries and, the fruitiness, I'm actually simply just tasting that inside of the sweetness of the coconut cream and the smokiness of the cassava cake. And I'm just tasting that banana, that sweet banana, because they have it not green, but sweet, like half ripe or ripe. And they mix that inside with the coconut cream and the... Oh my
I haven't, you're making me too. I haven't experienced that. I've been up to Vanuatu a long time ago, and that's the extent of my Pacific travels. So, I can only equate it with what I'm familiar with. Fortunately, we do grow quite a few bananas here in Raglan.
Yeah.
So I might have to get more familiar with the flowers and the aromas that come with them.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's good to also note that what it's familiar to or what it's similar to in terms of our fruits here in New Zealand, like the taste and the flavors that peak in your mouth. I think that once, if you can do this now with that, imagine what you can do if you spent some time in the South Pacific and getting to know all the other different ingredients, and even just incorporating those ingredients into the new products and new things, recipes that you have, that will come up. Especially after the show, I think this is going to be a great place for everybody to come together and share those sorts of gems. And for me as a grower and tree to bar producer, albeit be it small scale, in my own little island, I strongly believe that the way that we grow cacao as well, yourself as a chocolate maker, that the beans absorb so much flavor and everything that's around them, and I believe the same thing on the land when you're actually growing cacao. It takes in all the flavors from everything else it's growing around. So I'm very conscious of that, and I grow things consciously around to try and kind of get that. And hopefully some genius like you comes along and is able to define that, or like to find those secret flavors from my pineapple and from my, V umbrella, I think it's in English. But I do taste that in the beans. And when you're around cacao beans so much, and tasting great chocolate, classic, quality chocolate like you make, I think that it's such a blessing, but it's also a gift to give to other people. And I think that's why Bean to Bar and people who, like yourself, who is building this industry and building this whole movement of Bean to Bar, I think it's great, it's fantastic, and we need more to do more of it. And hopefully, putting this show on is going to help to change that as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a big part of connecting, the New Zealand makers into the Pacific. It's also exposing more and more people around the country to what we're doing. That is an alternative to the things that are made in factories. Yeah. And there's so many things that you've said in that your last few words are about the quantity you eat, because of the depth of flavor and interest there compared to the very simple and ordinary chocolate that you tend to eat volumes of, and the flavors coming from other things around the plantation. Now, this is something I can only learn. Occasionally, as a chocolate maker, I'll make something like a Dominican bar and go, am I imagining it, or am I picking up spicy notes?
Yeah.
Is it a cliche to think that foods in the Caribbean are going to have spicy notes, and yet you imagine and you're trying to figure, is this real or is it my imagination? So very often I'm working in the dark a little, but with direct, with feet on the ground in the South Pacific, it is going to be a game changer. It really is. Yeah,
I see that completely. Definitely a game changer. And what I feel is that if you're so passionate about what you're making, and also taking that time and spending that time to get to know the beans, and also to the state that you're roasting it at this temperature for this much time, and then you're trying it at each. And it might be frustrating at first, but then as you do it, you have that alchemist kind of process where it is about being taking care to deliberately and have that intention to create something really special, and not just some factory made thing that's kind of spat out and into the public and on the shelves. And this is the difference between conscious food and conscious produced food production, and consciously wanting to reach a market or a group of people, consumers that care about that. And
yes.
and it's having that whole journey, right? And I think what I was wanting to say was that all of the inclinations that you have, or you're not making it up in your head, like when you can feel that there is spice and cinnamon and vanilla and all those things, you're 99% probably correct, because those things are growing around in those areas. And, you know, black pepper and all these things, because you find that in other foods. And I think when I took this very long time to be conscious about the food that's growing at home, that's growing organically and growing in your backyard, you really get to know the flavors of what you're eating because of everything else that surrounds it. When you take things from the supermarket and all sorts of different places that you don't know where it comes from, you have no idea. Like it's just food that's going into yourself and coming out again. There's no meaning to it. So
absolutely, I think possibly less for you because of that specific background, but for a lot of people who are only buying food out of the supermarket, when I've heard podcasts talking about how to taste and having to educate themselves, and then even providing a tool so that people can learn how to taste chocolate. So it's all about going, okay, well, now we're going to taste raspberries.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to consciously think about what they taste like, and we're going to embed that in our memories, so that when we taste chocolate, we can be quite conscious that we're looking for that raspberry character, or one of the multiple flavors that you find in raspberry, find that in chocolate. And you can imagine doing that with 100 ingredients. Well, you've grown up like that. You've done that. you're one step ahead. And
wonderful. The thing is with the show is that we have to do a little bit of that at the tastings for the Pacific Cup, where we are going to have to teach people how to taste the chocolate so that they can make a good choice on the day of, you know, for the People's Choice Award in the Pacific Bar. We will get the general public to actually taste all the different samples, and you just number the samples, and you know, they'll be able to go through, and a lot of them will just go, oh, that just tastes like chocolate or whatnot. Yeah. But we really will take the time to actually coach them into not into what to taste, but into allowing their palate to feel and experience something different, or just to be more attentive, I guess.
To be conscious that they're actually looking for the possibility of flavors that they've never tasted in chocolate before.
Exactly, or what it's similar to. And you do get some of those people at chocolate tastings who don't normally do tastings at all. They'll just jump up and they'll say, oh, yeah, I can taste this, that, and the other. And it's spot on. And, you know, it's just people being conscious, or people being, I guess, unconscious.
Yeah. No, some people are actually very good at it. You know, I'm fortunate to have some great neighbours, and we have had the occasion, and maybe a bottle of wine was included, but yes, we have had the occasion where we've had neighbours over and we've sat around the table and enjoyed time together tasting and talking about chocolate. And it's taught Simone and I a lot about our chocolate and other chocolate by hearing other people's input when we're all tasting the same bar and we're talking about it. Very valuable.